Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how to make full Persian 6-in-1, which if you're familiar with the half Persian 3-in-1, this is way easier. So let's get started. For this project I'm using 18 gauge 1/4 inch SWG, which is like standard wire gauge rings in nickel or German silver, and then 3 tones in, I believe this is bronze, copper, and antiqued copper, of rings made from parawire. There'll be links to all the different tools and materials used down in the video description below, so be sure to check that out. And for this project, you can see I have all of these little rows set up, and you'll want units of 2 open with 2 closed on one of them. So you can kind of see how that works. And if you're new to my chainmail tutorials, that'll start to make sense a little later on. So to open a ring, you'll just kind of bend it like so. You don't ever want to pull the ring apart in this manner, because it's going to give you a brittle point right there, and then you're going to have a heck of a time trying to get it to become a nice little circle again. It's very likely that your rings will look like this, and you can see it has it's a little offset, but not quite open or closed enough one way or the other to be very useful for weaving chainmail. So to close it, we're going to butt those ends up just as good as we can together. And I put a little bit of pressure this way because whenever the rings are being cut, it's with a rotary, like a little jeweler's saw, and so it removes some of the material. So you want to compensate for that gap, and then you want to make sure that it's just as lined up as you can get it. And sometimes that means overextending, and just keep wiggling it until you get it to be how you like. I feel like the goal here is to make it look like there's no cut in the ring. And so there we are. Now the first segment that we have is going to have 4 closed on it, and that's going to assist us in starting off the weave. So there's 1 and 2 more closed. I really recommend having all of your rings set up, that way you can go ahead and just focus on your weaving, but to each their own. So we have 1 open with 4 closed on it here, and that happens, and it's okay. I'm just going to wrench that shut, line those ends up with each other just as well as we can, and pet it with your finger to check for any pokey bits. And so you see how that worked. And now I'm going to thread the second open ring through all 4, and then close that one. And so now we're going to separate out so that we have a little bit of a 2-2 chain. 2 rings, 2 rings, 2 rings. But then we're going to sandwich our left 2 in between our right 2 so that it looks like that. See how that works? And then if we rotate it around, I'm going to get my thumbnail kind of between these 2. Because what we're going to do next is take this ring and hook through those 2. Do you see? So it's actually our left farthest 2. And actually, let me get these extra rings off so that it's a little bit clearer, and I'll repeat that for you. So we have our segment of 2-2 chain. We're just going to sandwich that in between. And it can be quite slippery here to start with. That's okay. And then we're going to take our open ring, hook through this one, kind of use it to nudge apart these two, and just get in right there. See how it's hooked? And then put the farthest string away from us on there as well. Now we can troubleshoot here a little bit. You can see on this side, I didn't hook through. I need to be in between these two. So you just back up a little bit and get it to go through where it's supposed to. And it's just going to sit like that. Not gonna lie, starting this weave is the hardest part about it. And so we're gonna go ahead, put on those two closed rings. This is another weave that works really well with stretchy rubber rings, because you can see these two, well, you could close this one and then add 2 rings on. These two that I'm holding in my fingers could be rubber, since that you never really have to have them open for the weave when you're weaving it in this manner. So I'm going to pick up a second bronze colored ring and just thread right back through where we originally had. See how that kind of sits? And it's going to take some finagling, but I have confidence in you that you can do this. Just keep in mind, if it were easy, everybody could do it. Not everybody gets the hang of chainmail, but if you're inspired by it, if you really, want to, then keep at it and you'll get it. Oops, and I closed that one before hooking it through those two. So let's get that opened back up. Hooked on there, and then close it. Once you get about an inch of the way in, it's going to make a lot more sense, because now from here, we'll take, and we need them to be positioned on either side of this little center. They look like a bunch of like little stacked V's, if that makes sense. See how they kind of stack together? Now here's a completed example that I can show you. So we're going to kind of just keep that going. So I'm going to grab the next nickel silver pair, and I go ahead and let them just flop open, and then open, and then hook through this one here, hook through those two, and then hook through the outside ring. See how much easier that was now that we've got just a couple of rings going? Give us something to hold on to, and then we're going to close it, and then we're going to thread our second open ring through the mess of them, which again, you'll want to make sure that you're not hooking through any of the other rings. Hook those two closed on, and then close that one. I've found that sometimes having your ring be open just a little bit wider than what you normally might can help, so experiment with things like that to find what works best for you. Placing those on either side, and then coming in with our copper rings. And again, letting it fall open and opening those guys a bit so you can see the 2 rings that you need to be hooking through. Coming from right there, hooking through both, and then hooking through the outside. And close. And then we're going to follow through with one more ring. Just like that. Hook the 2 closed on. And then close it. And then from here, you want to make sure that one ring gets sided over so that it's sandwiched into that V. And then you just repeat that same thing like a bunch of times, and hooray, full Persian. Part of what's really nice about this weave is its movement. It's almost a very sensual weave. It drapes and flows and wiggles really nicely whenever you have little segments of it. Just bringing this around. this is another weave that I highly recommend. An aspect ratio of around like 5.5. And so long as you stick to that aspect ratio, you can use like a couple of different ring sizes to give it more of a gradated, you know, from like small to large or from large to small for earrings, or to make a little bit of a wave necklace, or, you know, just give some weight and movement to the piece. You can really add some different beads and things to the edges or to the ends to make it really nice. Oops. So I highly recommend, though, experimenting, different colors, different sizes. Just see what you like, see what happens. Putting one on either side. And then whenever I finish the weave, I would go through and just hook and open without any closed on it through like that, and I would double up on that. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate this, even though I'm going to be continuing this project onto something else, but just for the sake of demonstration. So you'll just add the two open without any of the additional closed on it, and you can see that makes a really nice bound off end. And then also, if you want to take it a step further and use these to link together with like maybe a gemstone bead in between the different segments. Here I'm using an 18 gauge 3/16, and I'm going to come in not where we would normally weave, but kind of on the diagonal. And I'm hooking through all 4 rings. See how that happened? So it kind of pushes them into an X. And I feel like that just tapers the end off really nicely, so I do it to both ends. And that gives me little rings that I can attach wrapped gemstone links onto, or other chainmail weaves, or anything like that, or attach it to an ear hook for an earring. So the possibilities here really are endless. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me for this tutorial. I hope that it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I don't know if I mentioned it, but all the links and materials, links to tools and materials will be listed down in the video description, so be sure to check that out, as well as all of my social media links, as well as my Patreon information, and all of the different things that you can check out if you'd like to support my daily tutorial production here on YouTube and stuff. So thanks again, you guys, and until next tutorial, next video, happy crafting, and I'll see y'all around. Bye!